Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Hercules and the Space Gods, I'm proud to present the UFO entity Enigma. And we have a wide variety of researchers here, each with their own perspective and each with years of experience. And how can we not start with the legendary Tim Swartz, who's, among other things, besides being an investigator, and a very prolific author and publisher. He is an all-around good guy. So, Tim, welcome to our inquiry.
Oh, thank you, Hercules. I mean, it's I'm very proud that you call me an all around good guy. I like that. So I'm prepared for tonight's show, and you really can't see it. My microphone, unfortunately, is in the way, but I'm wearing my alien shirt. You know, it's got the like that. There we go. You can see him there. Your typical gray alien with the big eyes. This one looks rather sinister, which I think is appropriate for what I'm going to talk about tonight. And I'm going to look at the whole evil agenda of the alien encounter. And of course, when I say alien, I'm not necessarily referring to extraterrestrial beings. The whole UFO mystery is a mystery, and we're not. Well, at least I'm not 100% positive, and with apologies to Marc there, that the entire UFO mystery has to do with beings from other planets. I think that there are a number of different aspects going on, a number of different players, with extraterrestrials being some of them. So I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I'm not saying that every UFO encounter tends to be hostile, because that's not the case. That being said, though, there have been a number of hostile encounters with UFOs over the years, and just very briefly, I'll talk about how that's almost an expectation with humans and encounters with something that is deemed unknown or abnormal. You look at the old like pulp magazine, science fiction magazines and comic books, especially starting like in the 1920s and 1930s, and they had these wonderfully colorful and garish colors and artwork, usually depicting some kind of hostile alien carrying a rather voluptuous young woman back into its spaceship. And you could probably throw a rock at all of those magazines if you were to lay them out, and practically always hit a magazine that had a cover like that. So we started pretty early on with the expectations that any kind of encounter with an extraterrestrial race is probably going to end up being hostile. And I won't talk about other pop cultures like movies, because we got somebody else that will talk about that tonight. But at first, after the alleged UFO crash at Roswell in 1947, and then the Kenneth Arnold sightings, you had the Contact E movement with people like George Adamski, who referred to the Space Brothers as being benevolent, and here almost as spiritual, almost angelic beings here to teach us and to guide us away from our destructive path. But at the same time, starting in around 1952, with the UFO flap, especially in France and Italy, you had a number of encounters with landed UFOs that it involved little creatures. People would often say that they were no bigger than, say, like a child. And while most of these encounters in Europe didn't lead to any kind of hostile activity, when this flap then extended to South America and Central America, you started to get some reports of people encountering landed UFOs, and the creatures that came out would be described as hairy, with claws and with some temper issues. There were a number of reports of these creatures actually pulling people out of their cars, clawing at them, trying to drag them inside the ship in violent ways, and altogether not very pleasant experiences. Now, as well, if you look at the Gonzalez Brazil cases that happened in the 1970s. Now, these didn't really involve beings or alleged extraterrestrials, but instead people were reporting that refrigerator-sized and shaped UFOs were attacking hunters who would string up hammocks in the trees at night. And these things would float overhead and hit these people with beams of light that caused them all kinds of medical problems. And there were people who were living, who were in their houses, that these things would appear outside the windows and do the same thing, hit them with beams of light. And they would report then medical issues, anemia. Some people later on were diagnosed with various forms of cancer, and definitely, not what you would think about as like a happy-go-lucky, benevolent space brothers out to help us. And of course, you've got the Cash Landrum UFO encounter in Texas, where the people were burnt very severely by this diamond-shaped UFO that swooped over a road. Two women and a young boy, and the massive amount of heat that was emitted from this thing really caused bad problems later on with the two women. The little boy actually hid behind the seat and got away for the most part of not being hurt. And then you have Stefan Michalak in this was like 1967 in Canada. Now, this guy was out one day prospecting, just having a good time looking for precious stones and metals, when he observed two UFOs flying overhead. One of these UFOs actually came down and landed close by. And he thought that this was some kind of top secret aircraft from, say, like the United States or the Soviet Union, something like that. And he approached it, and this craft actually had an open door. And Michalak said that he could see lights coming out from inside and voices. And he was wearing gloves at the time, and he touched the surface of the craft, and it actually melted the gloves. But then after he did that, the craft then rotated, and there were like vent holes in the side that hit him with a blast of hot gases and catching his shirt on fire and leaving him just in really bad shape. And for years, he had these burn marks in a grid pattern on his chest that would persist. It would show up for a while, disappear, then come back. And his son reported that when this happened, he would also have like this smell, like burnt motor oil, that would come out of his body. So whether or not these were deliberate attempts at hostility, That's the question that, maybe if we get a chance in another episode, that we'll examine a little bit more closely. So, Hercules, I'll throw it back to you. Thank you.
And thank you for leaving us on a cliffhanger. That was a great place to end your presentation. And yes, I'm looking forward to a continuation. So there will be a part two to this episode. Next, we have the founder of very many UFO related organizations, including Disclosure Network New York and Urantia Book New York. The one, the only Nick Curto.
Hey, good to have you in my living room. I feel as though you're all friends and you're all here. I really do feel that very deeply. All of you. Just it's a pleasure and a privilege to be with everyone here, Hercules, including you, of course.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to have you always.
And I wanted to just identify two particular times in my life. One was I have to say, terrifying, and the others recently were wonderful. So as far as what Tim was saying, I totally am on board with him that there is good, bad, and ugly on this planet, as we all know, and that's certainly true in the universe. Um, a a very terrifying thing happened to me and my family, my mother, father, and my sister, younger sister, when we, on a Sunday afternoon, it was very sunny, and we lived in Massachusetts, and we used to drive on Sundays as a family drive to Vermont, New Hampshire, and just enjoying the ride and eating as we went, right? And a lot of families do that. And all of a sudden, as they say, something happened. And I was the first one to encounter it. We're in a car. My dad's driving, my mom's in the front, my sister's to my left, and I'm in the back, right-hand side. And all of a sudden, something went through the car. It was a huge force field. That's the only way I could explain it. A force field that was so hurtful in every part of my body. It felt like 1,000 pins were like wham. It was like a wow, like that, like a huge wave. And I was stunned, of course. And I was hurting badly. And then wham, a second wave hit me. The next thing I remember, Hercules, it was nighttime. Now, this happened about maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now it was night, must have been about 8 o'clock, maybe 9, I'm guessing. And I'm conscious, and I'm looking about maybe 8 or 10 inches from a gray face alien with gigantic black eyes. And the thing I remember about the eyes is that they look like black glass, and they actually reflected a little bit of the moonlight in back and on the trees. I couldn't move. I tried to, my body was absolutely frozen in a sense. I couldn't move anything. I couldn't even move my face if I wanted to go back. And this being was looking this close to me. And I remember maybe 10 or 15 seconds of that. And the next thing I remember, I was back in the car. It must have been, I'm guessing, midnight, something like that, dark. My dad is back in the front, my mother, my sister, and we're going incredibly slowly on a dark road to go home. And untypically of my family, nobody was talking the entire trip, because they usually would say, look at that, or, what are we doing? Or no, not silence, which was unusual. Nobody could talk, and I believe nobody would look at each other. There was a very isolating feeling, very uncomfortable feeling. And we got back home, and I do remember nobody was talking. We got out of the car, we went into the house, and I remember that my mom was pulling the drapes closed, pulling the blinds down in all the rooms. I don't remember that she always did that, but she meticulously did that evening, almost like we don't want anything from the outside in. Now, the other part of the story, very quickly, is that maybe 30 years later, okay, it all suddenly swept into my memory. Before that, nothing. But all of a sudden, and I was astounded because I remembered everything that you were saying very clearly. But all those years, I had a race going on. And I believe that was deliberate. Now, why it would trigger that I could remember at such a late date, that's interesting. And I don't know the answer to that. Was it a smell? Was it a light hitting my eyes? Something. But it triggered. And the other part of that story is that I never to this day ever brought the subject up to my folks and my sister. I tried. And every time something powerful in me said, don't do it, Nick. Do not do this to them. And so I've always backed off to this day. My mom and dad are now passed on. My sister is still with us. So anyhow, how much more time do I have?
You're halfway through, so you have about 5 minutes.
Okay, the other part of that is that's the bad part. And to have any being take your free will is a no-no. That's awful. No being should take the free will from any other person. That is part of, I believe, the plan of God. And when you do that, when you take their free will or kill them or whatever, no, that is total evil, deep, deep evil. So at that point, the experience I'm telling you certainly was a horrible experience. And it was a sad way to begin my whole life as a researcher into the whole subject of UFO encounters and much more. That's why I co-started Disclosure Network New York. By the way, it's our 26th year of 2 meetings a month in Manhattan. 2 meetings a month for 26 years. And the people that have come into the group, never better. I'm so proud of every single man and woman, and it's worldwide. We have people now in a few other countries, including Hawaii. The other one, I want to end though this with a very pleasant thing, and that's when I've had sightings throughout my life. I've always felt good vibes. I've always felt comfortable with that, and in some cases, the craft, which I saw from a distance, will come either very close as they go over, or in one particular case, it stopped right over about maybe 15 people that I was with. It stopped absolutely, no wind, of course, no sound, nothing. And that was maybe 15, 20 seconds of totally straight up in the air. And then it continued on its path. But I always felt comfortable. Pine Bush, New York is another example of that same thing happened. We felt as though we were being acknowledged. That's the right word, acknowledged, that they knew we were here and we were doing it in a loving, peaceful way. And that message came across. That's just an interesting point, I think. So unfortunately, I started off with a hugely terrifying experience, but so far, knock on wood, my life has been pleasant and hopeful and warm, and I have good feelings for the acknowledgement that we've gotten over the years of, we know you're here. That's interesting. We know you're here, and we want to acknowledge that. That's got to be a good thing.
Wow, thank you for a phenomenally powerful personal account. And it certainly presents another facet of this mystery that we're exploring. And it complements everything that Tim had said, as if you guys had planned to give the presentation that way. But I know that it's a synchronicity rather than something planned. Thank you so very much, Nick.
Welcome, absolutely.
And now we go to Setna Comwest, sorcerer of Egypt, and a very good friend. Comwest, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Life, health, and prosperity. I'm going to be talking about positive and negative entities that I've encountered on my spiritual path. We mentioned Leonian, lion, and serpentine energies. Both of those I have experienced in spirit form and in manifested physical forms. They are positive and negative both. Lion and I'm going to say cobra in my case, both have negative and positive beings. I've seen both. The lion beings, the lioness beings, and I have Sekhmet with me, tend to be protective and guardian like. Excuse me, one sec. Like you, I have a little tickle. Um, the cobra beings also can be protective and also preventative of taking you to a particular level or realm to prevent you from getting somewhere. And I've had this when I do work on the astral plane and when I do things in my classes with my students when they're working on spirit work. Sometimes they will encounter an entity, a lioness or a lion, a male lion, who will stand in front of them and say, "Come with me," kind of like Aslan, a protective from the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, a protective lion that will come. Or you can have another that will say, "Stop. I am a barrier and you will not pass." The same thing is true of the cobras. They will either come and protect you or they will attack. They will say, "Back off. We don't want you here. This is a realm you have not enough experience in, and so we want you to stop." And if you do not listen, there are consequences. An adept magician, an adept spiritual person can get past these things. Someone who is not as practiced and does not know the energies as well as they should can actually be harmed by these energies. And when they manifest in physical form, it can be kind of spooky. Many, many years ago, I was sitting in front of the Taj Mahal and meditating. I just was kind of minding my own business. And I guess 25 feet from me, suddenly there was a white cobra. I was petrified. I love snakes, but I don't want a cobra that close to me. And the energy gave me telepathic messages that she was there to give me knowledge and to understand and to know what was going on within that sanctuary. And that some of it wasn't so positive. That people were murdered to build that beautiful, beautiful monument to Das Mahal by the great king Shah Jahan, who built it in honor of his beautiful wife who passed on. But I was told there was pain and suffering from the people that created the building and also those that built, designed it and those who built it. And so I was told, stay this far from the Taj Mahal and appreciate the beauty, but understand the pain. And so I did. And as I nodded my head, the snake basically vanished. It didn't slither away, it just faded away. It was a guardian, a spirit. And I had to think twice about it. Did that really happen? Did I see that? And yes, I did. I couldn't take a picture. I was too frightened. I'd never encountered a cobra that close to myself. 25 feet was more than enough. Thank you very much. So also true of the lions and things. Once I was in Central Park in the zoo, and I had a lion, the cross in the glass, looking at me, and I could feel the energy, and it's saying, we are here to understand what's going on. And I knew that lion wasn't necessarily just a lion. It was a very high spiritual form that had taken and moved into that particular animal. It was very interesting. There I felt safe, maybe because it was like a foot of glass between me and the lion. So those energies came and, I always go back to my Egyptians, and it's the same thing. You have lion gods and goddesses and serpent gods and goddesses that are both beneficent and also malevolent, that will harm or help, depending on how much you know how to get past that barrier. And I think I'm going to end my story right there.
Well, thank you very much, Setna, for introducing the mythic dimension, the place that is both within and without. And admittedly, a lot of these phenomena do take place in those liminal states that can be called in between. And
Quite.
thank you so very much for bringing that into focus. And again, another facet of this gem that we're all looking at. The way I look at what we're doing is the story of the blind man and the elephant, where
Oh,
one
yes.
is doing the trunk and describes the trunk, and another person tells them, no, that's not what's happening here, because they're feeling the leg, and the leg is very different than the trunk. Somebody else feeling the tail and saying, no, you're both wrong. But here we're willing to listen to each other, and hopefully the shape of the elephant and the nature of the elephant will come into better focus. So thank you very much for doing that well.
You're welcome.
And now we have Tillie Treadwell, who is new to our company, but she's made a very strong impression. She is an author, she is a podcast producer and host, and she is the most often when I'm asked when is somebody coming back, Tillie's number one at present time. So people are asking, when's Tillie coming back? When's Tillie coming back? So welcome back, Tillie.
Aw, thank you very much for having me. I didn't know that people were actually asking about me coming back. Hopefully that's a good thing, and hopefully I've made a positive impression, as much as I know how to do anyway.
Yes, you have. You've made a very positive impression, and you are a very memorable person.
Thank you very much. I will do my best to serve as best as I can. Well, thank you very much for having me back. I am honored and very happy to be here, my friend. I, like Nick, consider you all to be good friends and family, and I sincerely thank you all for welcoming me into the fold. Tonight, I have written a piece for you about different types of non-human peoples who have interacted with humankind for seemingly quite a long time. I would like to take you through the history and the interactions of the aliens, so-called aliens, jinn, fairies, and maybe one other. Shall we begin? Throughout history, stories of exotic peoples and beings have been a part of the collective imagination, intriguing humankind in nearly every culture. These supernatural beings have been depicted in various fashions, often carrying different meanings and interpretations. While some believe that these entities have had a profound impact on human history, others see them as mere figments of our collective consciousness. Let us now instead explore the various types of non-human kind and attempt to discern their intentions with humankind. One of the most famous cases supporting supernatural help to humans from non-human people is the story of the Anunnaki, an ancient race of aliens said to be originating from the planet Nibiru. In various cultures, including the Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian mythology, the Anunnaki are portrayed as deities who intervene in human affairs, often granting wisdom and knowledge to rulers. Some believe that the Anunnaki have also been responsible for the creation of humans using advanced technology and genetic manipulation. According to my research, the word Anunnaki is composed of two elements. Anu, this is the Sumerian god of the sky, heavens, and air. He was considered the father of the deities in the Anunnaki pantheon. Naki, this is the Sumerian word for lord or king. When combined, Anunnaki literally means the lords of the heavens or the gods of the sky. On the other hand, there have been reports of aliens who were seen as harmful and destructive beings. One of the most notorious examples is the story of the Zeta Reticulans, a race of aliens allegedly from the constellation Reticulum. In the 1950s and 1960s, UFO enthusiasts claimed that the Zeta Reticulans were responsible for many UFO sightings, and some even alleged that they had attempted to abduct humans. These claims were further fueled by the publication of the book Chariots of the Gods by Erich von Däniken, which suggested that advanced alien technology was responsible for many ancient structures and artifacts. Beyond the realm of aliens, fairies have been a prominent figure in various cultures and traditions as well. Fairies are often depicted today in America as small, winged beings with magical powers, inhabiting the natural world and influencing human affairs. In European folklore, however, fairies are typically portrayed as mischievous and capricious creatures, playing tricks on humans and leading them astray, seemingly as likely to mislead them as they are to assist. The word fairy has its roots in Old English, specifically in the word feo, which means beautiful. Over time, this word evolved and was adopted into various languages, ultimately taking on the form of fairy in Middle English. The Old English word feo is believed to have come from the Proto-Germanic word, and pardon me, I already know I'm going to butcher this word, behas, I cannot remember how to say that one, I apologize, which was also associated with beauty and dignity. This word is further connected to the Proto-Indo-European root pe, which means to shine. This connection to light and beauty is not surprising, as fairies are often depicted as ethereal and radiant beings around the world. Could it be that some fairies are also amongst what human beings would call the Shining Ones? If you are unfamiliar yet with the Shining Ones, please do allow me to introduce you. The Shining Ones are typically described as having an otherworldly appearance, often with luminous or ethereal bodies. They are known for their otherworldly knowledge, wisdom, and power. Some accounts portray them as beings of light, while others suggest that they are more akin to dark or shadowy entities. They are often said to be malevolent, but not always, and their intentions can vary depending upon the cultural context and the individual belief system. In some modern interpretations, the Shining Ones are seen as alien invaders or extraterrestrial beings who have come to Earth to exploit its resources or to influence human affairs, for better or worse. And then we have the legends of the jinn. In Arabic mythology and folklore, jinn are supernatural beings, often described as malevolent spirits bound to specific objects or individuals. They are believed to possess immense powers, including shape-shifting, invisibility, and control over matter and energy. While some portrayed jinn as malevolent forces, others suggested that they have interacted with humankind in various ways, both positively and negatively. Modern-day accounts that I located seem to reflect the same combination of helpful and harmful. The word jinn has its roots in Arabic and has a complex history that spans several centuries. Its exact etymology is not entirely clear, but there are several theories. Arabic origin. The most widely accepted theory is that jinn is derived from the Arabic word janin, which means genie or spirit. This word is believed to have come from the Proto-Arabic word janan, pardon me again, which also means genie or spirit. Pre-Arabic influence. Some scholars suggest that janin may have been influenced by pre-Arabic words that were used in the region to refer to supernatural beings. These words could have come from Semitic languages such as Akkadian or Hebrew, or from other ancient civilizations. Onomatopoeia. Another theory proposes that jinn is an onomatopoeia that imitates the sound of a supernatural being's voice or breath. Linguistic isolation. It's also possible that jinn is a linguistic isolate, meaning that it does not have any clear ancestors in other languages. The word jinn was used in Arabic literature and mythology to refer to a wide range of supernatural beings, including demons, spirits, and angels. They were often depicted as powerful entities that could influence human affairs and possess human bodies. The concept of jinn has had a profound impact on various cultures around the world, including Arabic, Persian, Indian, and Islamic cultures. The interaction between jinn and humankind has been a subject of fascination and debate apparently for well over 1,000 years. While some view jinn as malevolent beings that pose a threat to humanity, others see them as peoples that can be understood and harnessed for positive purposes. The concept of jinn continues to hold a place in the cultural and religious landscape, reminding us of the vastness of the supernatural world and the mysteries that still lie beyond our common understanding. Beneath everything, aliens, jinn, shining ones, and fairies have been a part of our cultural imagination, captivating people with their supernatural powers and mysterious origins. While some believe that these have had a profound impact on human history, others see them as mere figments of our imagination and collective consciousness. The portrayal of non-human people has also been influenced by the scientific discoveries and technological advancements of our time. As we continue to explore and uncover the mysteries of the natural world, we may find that these supernatural beings are not as distant as they once seemed. However, whether they are real or imagined, aliens, shining ones, jinn, and fairies continue to fascinate and inspire humankind, reminding them of the limitless potential that lies beyond their immediate understanding. When it comes to morality and interaction, though, it may be more realistic to say that each situation and each person is unique, and that this may be the reason for the strange tapestry of helpful and harmful encounters over the years. Perhaps there is no one agenda.
I'm going to have to interrupt because we ran out of time, but thank you for introducing the folkloric element. Michael introduced the mythic, now you've introduced the folkloric. And as a European who was raised in those traditions, Greece is right next to Turkey, and the Greeks and the Turks have a long history. So the jinn lore is part of our lore as well. When I was growing up, I knew them as the skies, which means the shadow people. And that's a subject for another show. But thank you so very much. This is coming together very beautifully.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for running over, my friend.
No, it's okay. And I'm looking forward to your part 2 as well. We have Tim's part 2 coming up and your part 2 coming up. I'm really looking forward to that. And now onwards, we go to Marc and Phyllis Brinkerhoff. Is Phyllis with us today?
There we are.
Yeah, there we are.
Oh, Phyllis will just say hi. No, she's working on something right now. Do you want to just say hi?
Hi, kids.
Hi. Well, everything, I love everything so far. It's really great. And I wanted to show you something, Nick. This is an old mug. I made this for one of these old card companies. They wanted a gray. So it says, I'm a little spacey before coffee. If you recognize that mug, it's an old mug from the 90s that the stores used to sell. But I had a nice face, and they didn't want it. They wanted eyes dark, and they wanted veins and strange eyes. I'll make it look not nice. And so they liked that look. And I didn't know if maybe you were seeing something similar to that face, maybe not the nose, but the slit. This is the type that is also known as a gray. Sorry, it's my reflecting stuff here. But that's the negative type. And this looks like a gray, but it's not. And this is a positive kind. This is a friend's good ones. And notice they have irises not like we have, but people might think it's a gray because they're small with a larger head. But they have white skin, these little guys. They're known as the Ilalu. That's another group. And we were talking about Space Brothers, and I'm just going to show this as a part of that image. Phyllis and I had a body, but people can say that's kind of what they kind of look like. All like 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 feet tall. And when I met them in the fields, they were like 9, 10, 12 feet tall. So I wanted to get into a little bit of the negative. Now it's for fairies, which is one of my other top subjects I love. I have photographs of them from my apartment. They appear physically to Phyllis and I. Dragon are elves, and they are as real as we are, but they are from that dimensional space around us with the planets, part of the angelic realm. They're not space aliens or anything, although they are on other planets and in ships where you have plants. So you have nature spirits throughout the universe, throughout the omniverse on different levels and planes. Most of these physical densities that are negative beings, or we think are negative, like the Greys, who like happened to Nick, where he had that encounter, or Betty Hill, who I was close friends with back in the 70s and 80s and 90s until she passed. She had experiences that was not spoken of in her book, and she told me some things. They were not that evil or anything. They were scientific. And they did take Barney and her on the ship. They left the dog, their dachshund, in the car, who was hiding under the seat. So she didn't feel them as evil when she talked with them. And the one that was, she called the leader, telepathically, and he spoke with her. So remember, she wanted to get a book to bring something as proof. And the other aliens on the ship, who were more like the workers, they didn't want it done. Now, a lot of people say, why hadn't you gotten something from these ships when you go on them? Because they don't have things like paper clips lying around. You can say, oh, they got a space clip. You know, they don't have that. Their ships are very pristine and let's say allergy free for all of us out there, and also purified, very clean. Some of the grays that people have had experiences with on their ships, like Travis Walton, they might have had dingy looking ships. And they also said there was a smell, a weird sulfur-like smell or a bad smell, like decay. That's a sign right there. You're dealing with a first plane, low-level being. So we got the higher beings, as we call them, higher frequency, whatever. They come from higher planes, and they can work within our planes, some of them. But when you get to these physical dense ones like us, density like us, they're the ones who want things from our planet and from the scientists they work with here. So they're trading something, or they want water, which a lot of the planets don't have enough. They want minerals or whatever they have, and they'll trade with the Earth people. Or they'll go and take their sonic cannons that they have on the ships we've seen, and the scientists on Earth know of them, and they go and make those mining tunnels like they've seen for millions of years ago. They said these were not human, you know, they're tunneled glass-like walls. That's they're what we call in space sonic cannon. It's a frequency device that dematerializes the energy and the stone it goes through, and they can mine through that. They're in England, these tunnels, and people I knew in the past had been in them. And they're huge. Like you can have a 30-foot scout ship go through these tunnels, or a giant truck on the highway could go through these tunnels. Enough of that, just to say that on our planet Earth, when we're on here, the scientists are working with some these beings, not always of the good. They have benevolent space beings they're working with. Let's now bring up Valiant Thor, and I'm not going to bring up the Valiant Thor that's in these contact places you keep seeing. Valiant Thor, Commander Thor, that is not the real actual Valiant Thor. It's a guy pretending to be him. So whatever he is, whoever he is, I don't care. He's not the real guy, but he's acting like he is, but he's not. And he makes some books out there called Valiant Thor. That's not the real Valiant Thor. This is this other guy. And Nick, I think, knows that too with me. And a few of us all know that. But he's out there right now on the place, saying that NASA, we never went to the moon. You hear this hoax going around right now. Yes, we did go to the moon, and they're promoting, no, we didn't. But I knew scientists and guys that worked there passed on recently, who without their formulas, the LEM wouldn't have landed on the moon. And how did he get the formula? It was given to him in a screen energy across his desk in the air above him in response to his questions, because he was pondering with the scientists that we can get this, but we can't get communication from the LEM to the computers to Earth. So we can't do it. But the formula that he came up with, the scientists worked with, and they said, well, we haven't got a full answer. So our friend at the time, he's passed on again, Arrest was his name. He went in and contemplated again for like fasting for days until the answer came up as another formula, which he wrote down, gave it to the scientists, and they figured it out. That made the LEM communication with the LEM to our Earth's computers able to happen. Otherwise, the computers couldn't talk to each other like that, like they do today. Yes, we went to the moon, so I don't want to hear about that. And they went to the moon to find out what the surface of the moon was like. So yes, they brought glass back within the surface of the dust, beads of glass, showing that our sun, micronova, thousands of years ago, blasting the moon with that's why it's white. But they blasted it in the Sahara Desert and all that, wherever they find these beads of glass, and intense heat melted that to become the beads. And that's one of the reasons they went to the moon, to see what was on it as well. But they saw the spaceships, they know about the moon. Okay. And well, I just want to be sure everybody understood fairies are not aliens, but they are beautiful beings and shining ones. Kingdom of the Shining Ones, as well as angelics, are very shining. Yet there are beings that can mimic that. And the fallen ones, or the tricksters as we call them in space, they can mimic that. But on these low density levels, here only on the first plane. On the higher planes, we don't have negative beings of evil up there or anything negative like that. They're all working. Yeah, you can have an argument, but nobody's going to take a gun and kill each other. But it's not like that on those planes above this third and fourth.
Thank
I
you very
don't
much.
know if there was anything else, so I just wanted to say that.
No, that too. It begs a part two. And
Okay.
for offering us a perspective from within the phenomenon. So we've looked at it from the outside, we've looked at it from other sides. Now we look at it from the perspective of someone totally within the phenomenon. So thank you for bringing that perspective to the table.
Thanks.
You
You're
are
welcome.
uniquely
And
you.
you're and Hercules, you look great with your haircut. It's great.
Yeah, my hair's tied in the back, actually.
Oh, it is? Well, it looks like you trimmed it.
Yeah, we trimmed it in front. It was getting in my eyes, and yeah.
Okay. Looks good, man.
Thank you for noticing.
I'm muting.
And now onward we go to what is percolating in our popular culture, in the collective imagination of humanity, and expressed through cinema. The one, the only Brian Walker, who founded Brian's Drive-In Theater over a quarter of a century ago. And I started out as a fan, and now I'm honored to be a friend. Greetings and welcome, Brian.
Oh, thank you, Hercules. What I wanted to discuss tonight was the rise of alien encounters in 1950s and newer science fiction movies. If you think back to really old horror films, let's say from the 20s, 30s, and 40s, most often the other in those films is some form of monster. Whether it's Frankenstein's monster, Wolfman, vampires, even some crude zombies, not in the sense that we think of zombie movies today, but there was a spate of zombie movies in the early 40s. After World War II, there was a big shift. I mean, I think that the world had seen so many horrors that, suddenly a vampire didn't seem so uh, didn't seem so frightening, perhaps. And this all roughly coincides with the growing number of UFO sightings, beginning in 1947 with Kenneth Arnold's sighting, and then moving on through the late 40s and early 1950s. Obviously, with these encounters making headlines, in newspapers and radio and early television at that point. It was bound to come out in the film. Now, the very first film that I can find anyway that makes any mention of flying saucers is, as we think of them, post World War II, is a movie called, interestingly enough, The Flying Saucer from 1950, and it parlays the sort of the 1950s hysteria or craze, regarding UFO sightings and possible landings, and the events that were going on in Roswell, New Mexico, and Washington at that particular time. Really, I mean, the sightings were just all across the U.S. and the world as well. But the Flying Saucer, regrettably, isn't a great film, unfortunately. It is very cheaply made. It was actually made at the Hal Roach Studios, which is almost the stamp of a B movie, especially during the late 40s and early 1950s. It's, like I said, it's not made particularly well, but it is the first, and for that reason, it's very important. However, when it comes to other alien encounters, I think you really have to take a really hard look at The Thing from Another World. And this is the original 1951 version with Kenneth Tobey as the protagonist. And interestingly enough, James Arness as the alien. James Arness at the time was a youngish actor. This was before he portrayed Marshall Dillon on Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke had started out as a radio show, and interestingly enough, William Conrad from Jake and the Fat Man, Cannon, I mean, numerous TV shows, was Marshall Dillon on the radio. When it made the transition, as most radio shows did at the time, to television, I guess William Conrad wasn't really seen as a viable candidate for the role, and James Arness was hired for it. He was physically imposing. He was about 6'6", 6'7", and people who are tall like that, who can look menacing on screen, are obviously the ones who get hired. And the thing from another world is often referred to just as The Thing, and it was remade in the early 1980s. John Carpenter did a remake, which is very good. I prefer the original just because you know me, Hercules, the OG is always the best for me. But it is a fabulous film. It is in black and white, and it has some terrifying sequences. It's very well made. Unlike a lot of 1950s science fiction films, it is a very high quality film. And some of the ones that I'm going to talk about actually are tonight. They're not all bad. The next one I would like to mention is The Day the Earth Stood Still. I don't know that I know anyone who hasn't seen The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's such a classic, and it stars Michael Rennie and Patricia Neal. And with The Thing from Another World, it's a truly terrifying movie. I do want to say though that The Day the Earth Stood Still is much more cerebral. There's much more going on with The Day the Earth Stood Still. Ultimately, the viewer is, left wondering if the aliens, if humankind will allow itself to be helped by the alien or not. It's really a curious look at it. There was so much going on in the world, and certainly in the U.S. In the early 1950s. And I think The Day the Earth Stood Still really embodies a lot of that. Okay, you have all this power now. You have the atomic bomb. You have nuclear fission. What do you do with it? What choices do you make? It really does make people think, and it's a great film for that. Now, some of these unfortunately aren't top quality films, and that probably goes for the next movie I want to talk about, and that's Devil Girl from Mars. It's as campy as all get out. It's a British film, and kind of a quick British film at that. It appeared a lot on drive-in double bills in the 1950s. And it stars horror favorite Hazel Court. She's not the Devil Girl from Mars, however. That is left up to Patricia Laffin, a British actress who really sinks her teeth into the role. She more or less menaces the humans in the bar just by being really nasty to them and telling them how stupid they are. I really like her portrayal of the alien here, and it's a very black and white movie, and I mean that more so even in terms of just the colors of the lack of color. It is good versus evil. There's nothing in between. She is very evil. Hazel Court is very good in the film. And it's a lot of fun, very campy, very much worth watching. This Island Earth is another big favorite. That's with Rex Reason, Jeff Morrow, Jeff Morrow, Russell Johnson, Lance Fuller, and Faith Demert. And I'm supposed to be speeding it up, Herc? Very good. This Island Earth is a great science fiction film from the 1950s, shot in color, and that sets it apart from the movies that I've talked about before. Everything before it was in black and white, into the mid 1950s with movies like This Island Earth and Forbidden Planet. You started moving into color and much more expensive productions. Now you're always going to have very inexpensive horror and science fiction films because they sell, they make money, they generate a lot of revenue. The last movie I wanted to talk about before we wrap up Hercules is a Marshall Thompson film that I love. I've always been a big fan of Marshall Thompson. When I was a kid, I can remember, Doctari and reruns, and that was my first remembrances of him. But he made a couple of really great 1950s science fiction movies, and one of them is The Terror from Beyond Space, which is the film that the basic premise for Ridley Scott's Alien, upon which it was based. It's a very similar plot too. Marshall Thompson and his crew are, out in space, and there's an alien stowaway who, one by one, starts picking everybody off. It's a really good film, very terrifying. Yes, Hercules. 1 minute? Oh, thank you. If you have not seen The Terror from Beyond Space, it was a low budget film, but it has some great thrills, great horrors, and the plot alone, knowing that Ridley Scott's Alien franchise is more or less based on this film, I think makes it very worthy to watch. But the principal actors do a great job. The movie's very tight as well. It's not flabby with a lot of dramatic scenes or anything. There's a lot of tension in it. And I've got so many more movies to talk about on my list, Herc, so I can certainly go for another round on this one.
At least another round. Plus, you have your own shows, so continue there. But we will continue it here as well. Thank you, Brian, for adding that dimension. As metaphysicians know, the imaginal is also called the astral, because the astral is a plane of imagination, of dreams, of fantasy. So those stories are percolating in our inner selves, and they wind up as being creatively expressed through movies. Some of them not very good, as you pointed out, but still, they're out there. They become part of our modern mythology. So thank you. And last but not least, we have Carole Linda Gonzalez, an occultist and a metaphysician of renown here on the Northeast. And we're very fortunate to have her today. She's been invited before, but she seldom accepts the invitations, and I'm glad she did today. Carole, I move the scepter into your hands.
Sure. By saying that everyone here, and I assume your listeners too, believe or are open to the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena and the possibility of its connection to extraterrestrial life. I myself like to separate the spiritual from the study of UFOs. That said, I do believe there's a spiritual realm. That's another story. But in a world where scientists seem to be playing with our reality in a way that we can't control, I prefer to focus on the material view. So at least for now. So I'm tagging on to Tim Swartz's view. I met Tim Beckley when I was a teenager and kept up with him on and off through the years. I met him as a result of my own sighting and trying to find answers. I remember he always said to me that then you think we are ants. Okay, I remember that. He's gone, but we're lucky to have Nick Curto in New York City, whose group I attend, and I love it. He's arranged some great calls with Kathleen Marsden and Dr. Stephen Greer among them. So during the call with Dr. Greer, he seemed to be really, really positive of the good, the positive energy of extraterrestrials. So I paused, and like Tim, I thought, well, I don't know. There's all these cases, these terrible cases that you hear about, where they take you without your will, without your permission. So I don't know about that. So I've been doing more reading, and I'm not going to go into the Colares case because Tim mentioned it, but Dr. Jacques Vallée, who had a sighting when he was 14, which is what started his interest in UFOs. And of course, he's a renowned astrophysicist, and scientists and many of us already know his work in South America for a study of what's going on there. And he found some things that are pretty frightening. I mean, we don't really know who we're dealing with out there. I will mention this. Just before we started, I listened to an in-depth interview with Dr. Valet. He says there's been some question about what his belief is, that they think, oh, now they're interdimensional. Well, it's not quite true. He believes in this concept that you see in science fiction. They showed it in Dune, where you can go to a spot and then jump across the universe, so that they can come here. But he mentioned there was an incident in Ubatuba Beach, Brazil, in 1958, where witnesses actually saw a disc crash and pieces of it fell to the beach and were collected. I guess the Brazilian government came in, whatever. They turned over half of this material that was collected to Stanford University and to a group called APRO. I don't know if it still exists. Probably people here know, but they've been studying it through the years, and it's a type of magnesium. They found a type of magnesium that is so pure that it just doesn't occur, not easily at any rate. And they're constantly studying it. So there is definitely real evidence that they're here. What they're doing, well, that's another story. But there are incidents that Tim alluded to in Brazil where they were, according to this place, Colares, they claimed they were actually attacked by beams from these ships. So said, I wonder how wise it is for us to be inviting them, but we should be aware of what's going on. And I'm going to leave you. My talk is very short since I've been listening to everybody, and a lot of people have said things I would say. Well, anyway, there is a science fiction program that Brian Walker probably knows about called Three Body Problem. And it's very interesting. It was written during the Cultural Revolution in China, I believe. And you get the feeling that the author it's a Chinese author. You get the feeling that the author was looking for something better, like looking to the heavens for guidance from benevolent ETs. And in it, one actually contacts them, and they're coming. And it's about the consequences of what we may be calling to ourselves. So I was going to talk about the war in a more spiritual manner that I got interested in through Dr. Heiser, who praised Hercules on one of his programs about his knowledge of Greek texts and how similar it was to some of the ideas found in the Bible and in ancient texts as well. But I'll leave that. And I never forget how Tim would always say, they think we're ants. I'll leave you with that.
Well, thank you very much. I miss Michael. Michael died, Michael Heiser, and I really miss him. We had several conversations on and off the air, and he was exceptional. And he really, really, really shined a light on the Council of the Gods in the Bible, or the Council of the Elohim, as it's called. So I miss him, and wherever he is, I wish him very well and look forward to having a conversation with him when I too have crossed the veil into the other side. Thank you, Carole. What do you call it? Hopefully we'll be able to have you on more often.
It wasn't too depressing.
And since we ended with you, we're going to start with you in terms of giving contact information. If someone would like to find out more about you and enter your world, how would they contact you?
I'm on Facebook. You can contact me there, Carole Gonzalez. I'm very open. Tillie got in touch with me there. And I'm always on there. And Tim Swartz is on there. Marc is on there, though I get emails from Marc. And Brian, I've come across your site a couple of times. Lots of fun. I've seen all the movies you've talked about tonight.
Awesome. And then we go to Marc and Phyllis. No, to Brian. I'm sorry. Brian, can people enter your world?
You can always visit the drive-in at briansdriveintheater.com, Brian with an I. Also, if you want to interact with me on social media, other than LinkedIn, my social media platform of choice right now is Facebook. I only lurk on Twitter, and I don't even do much of that anymore. So, but you can find me on Facebook at Brian Walker, or you can also find me under Brian's Drive.
Thank you very much. Marc and the invisible Phyllis, how can people enter your world?
Oh man, what a great night, huh? This is fantastic. Loved hearing everybody's information. Okay, you can get in touch with me at my art site for animals in space and dinosaurs and everything, marcbrinkerhoff.com, MarcBrinkerhoff at yahoo.com, intergalacticmission.com, etuniversal.zone.com, and where you'll see other information on our shows, what we do with Hercules and other interviews. And email is marcbrinkerhoff@yahoo.com.
Thank you
And
so
I do
much.
consultations and things. And Facebook, Facebook, like Carole said, Facebook and YouTube's. Thank you. UFO information on YouTube.
Thank you. And it's all very interesting stuff. Marc has added a whole new dimension to our explorations, and thank you very much, Marc. And then we have
Thank
Tillie
you.
Treadwell. Tillie, if someone wishes to explore your videos and your writings and your life, where would they go?
Thank you, my love. They would want to email me, talktillie2me@gmail.com, and they can catch the show, The Weird Walk Home, on YouTube. It is streaming there exclusively right now, although I will say I've just penned a deal to start a brand new spin-off show called After Dark with Tillie and Marc, where we'll be discussing a lot deeper, darker mysteries here. New episodes are creeping your way in June, so please do stay tuned. Outside of that, I am going to be a key speaker and a panelist at the UFO Disclosure Conference that will be held in New York City, put on by our dear friend Nick Curto. If they'd like to read any of my writings, please do check out the new Weird Time book. And I have a new book coming in October that's going to be called Tales from the Rift. It's a fictional paranormal tale collection, but maybe there are some non-human people out there that like to tell stories about all of you, my friends. Besides that, on Facebook, there are lots of my articles on the International Dogman Project and the Quad Coalition of Scientists. That's it for now.
Thank you very much, and thank you for gracing us with your presence tonight. And I know people are going to be talking about it, so I'll give you feedback.
Thank you, love.
Next, we go to Setna Comwest of Khemet, aka Michael K. Waterman. How can people find you? You're muted, Setna.
Horrors. I'm sorry. I'm very seldom muted. You can get me at Michael K. Waterman on Facebook. You can get me at Phone a Wizard, my company, on Facebook also. You can get me at Setna on TikTok, Setna Comwest. You can reach me also by phone, 516-650-3691. You can also do through Hercules, but also you can write to me if you want to. That would be Michael K. Waterman at 1699 Chatham, Chatham Parkway, apartment 1523A, Savannah, Georgia, which is wild for me, 31405. And there are other things we'll talk about if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my friend. Nick Curto.
Yes, sir. Well,
My favorite color in this shirt.
Oh, thank you very much. I love the fabric, and I'm going to get a few more of these. They feel so wonderful. So, I want to keep things simple. The simplest way is my email. I'm going to give you that, which is NYNY1, and that's the numeral 1, not ONE, at gmail.com. Again, NICKNYNY1 at gmail.com. And as Tillie was mentioning, I'm working on a project to get a weekend here in Manhattan for the whole subject of disclosure. And I'm excited about that. I'm trying to get some grants to do it, and may have a possible idea of someone who may help us on that. So I'm looking for grants and information, and I'm also looking for a venue that will be very kind to us when it comes to renting for the weekend. Or the best way, of course, is for the venue to say, this is important, we will donate the venue for you. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Thank you so very much, Nick. And last but certainly not least, we come full circle to Tim Swartz. Tim, how can people buy Zontar books and enter the world you've created?
Sure, Hercules, and thanks again for having me on tonight. Well, since we do have our new book, Weird Time, Exploring the Mysteries of Time and Space, just out, I'm going to direct everyone to our website, which is weirdtimebook.com, which you can find information about this book. And also, I've provided a way that if anybody wants to send an email to myself or the other authors, which includes Hercules, Michael, and Tillie, then you could do so through this site, and I'll make sure that everybody gets these messages. But again, that's weirdtimebook.com.
Thank you so very much. On my end, Facebook is the best place and the best way to reach me, or by email, hercules.invictus@gmail.com. And as I announced earlier in the show, between now and the next episode of UFO Entity Enigma, we have 2 specials that are planned and a new series that'll be launching. The 2 specials are a Tim Beckley special and also a special tied to the book Weird Time. And then the new series is actually the restarting of an old series we had called Mythic Monsters, where we'll be looking at cryptids, including in popular culture. So Brian will be a frequent guest on that show as well. I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here. I'm phenomenally impressed with today's episode, and I'm looking forward to part 2 next month.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Extraordinary. Thank you, Hercules. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Blessings all.
Good night.
Night.